Welcome to Fireside Giants. My name is Alex with my co-host here, Anthony Rivardo, and today we want to talk about a little Jake Fromm, right? After last week's game, Mike Glennon really just put me in a state of depression, of resentment, and really, I just don't know how the coaching staff fathomed and came to the conclusion that Mike Glennon was the proper backup for Daniel Jones. Go look at the Baltimore Ravens. You look at Tyler Huntley. He's an exact replica of Lamar Jackson, but kind of like a knockoff version. He went undrafted. And you just look at Huntley and the way he plays. He's running, he's throwing, he can do all the things Lamar Jackson does. But I will say the Giants did the exact opposite. They looked at Daniel Jones, said, you know what? We have an athletic quarterback. He can run, he can do all these things. Let's go get an absolute statue of a man to play as our backup. It doesn't make any logical sense to me. They're paying him a good portion of money to really suck. He had 3 interceptions last game. He's moving around. He's throwing air balls. He's just throwing it up in the air for anyone to grab. The second Jake Fromm came in, you could feel the offense had a little bit more flow to it, a little bit more calmness. He settled everybody down. It felt a little bit better. Now, I don't want to get anyone's expectations blown out of the water here. Nobody here is expecting Jake Fromm to be a starting level quarterback in the NFL. Nobody here is expecting him to suddenly steal the quarterback, the starting role from Daniel Jones. That's not what we're talking about right now. What we want to talk about is how he can be a good backup for this team moving forward. The Giants haven't had a good backup for a very, very long time. I can't even recall the last time, maybe Carr. It's been years since the Giants had an adequate backup. And I think at this point, it's time for us to find one that we can rely on, at least to come into a game, provide some calmness. We're not in the ages of Eli Manning anymore. We're not in the ages where our quarterback never gets injured. Daniel Jones has gotten injured a couple of times in the past 3 years, and we've had to supplement with Colt McCoy or Glennon, whoever it might be. At this point, though, Anthony, I think it's fair to say that we need a backup who can come in, manage a game, and not absolutely suck. That's why people were kind of clamoring on about going out and getting a guy like Marcus Mariota, or someone that can come in and actually potentially win a game. You never know. Jake Fromm, I think, has the potential to at least offer some calmness, can move the ball downfield. He's accurate in the shorter ranges. Mike Glennon missed so many throws last week. Like I said in the last video, he might have been drunk, 3 a.m., throwing darts at a board, hit multiple people, but most of them were people he wasn't intending to hit, meaning the Dallas Cowboys, which is why he threw 3 interceptions. What I want to see is just a guy who's going to come in, make good throws, get the ball out quickly. I like Jake Fromm. I think he has good backup attributes, Anthony. Before we dive into really what he can offer this team and what we want to see from him the rest of the year, how you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing great. It's almost Christmas time. That's why I got this festive little beanie on. Go Giants, of course, but also Christmas. Happy holidays to everybody that's watching this. It's almost time. Hope everybody has a safe and awesome holiday. But let's talk some Jake Fromm now. No, I don't think he'll ever be a starter. I don't think he'll be a quality starter in the NFL. But long-term developmental backup, now you got me listening. Now I'm excited with Jake Fromm because that's something that the Giants need. When was the last time that they had a quality backup for years and years and years? I think it was back where they had Eli Manning. What was his name? Nassib? I think his name was Nassib. Of course, he never saw the light of day, never saw the field at all because Eli Manning was an Iron Man. He was a tank. He was never going to get hurt. He was never going to go out there miss a game. That was Eli Manning. He was the most durable. But when you got Daniel Jones, or if the Giants go after any other quarterback, you never know. They're not all Eli Mannings. They're not all durable. They're not all going to go out there and make it for every single Sunday. So the Giants need to invest in a backup. It's something that they've been able to overlook for years because of Eli, but they can't overlook it anymore. And it seems like they tried to overlook it. They were like, you know what? I think Daniel Jones is going to stay healthy. I think he's going to be just like Eli Manning, like we always thought, and we don't have to go ahead and get a backup quarterback. Well, the Giants, like many of the other moves that they've made in the past couple of years, they were terribly wrong about that. Daniel Jones got hurt. They needed to get a better backup than they did. And now they're scrambling. They found Jake Fromm on the waiver wires, and here he is. He should be starting the last few games. Not guaranteed that he will be, but he should be. And so we'll go forward hoping that he is. But nevertheless, Jake Fromm, what do I think of him? What do you think of him, Alex? I think we're both on the same page. Not going to be a starter, but he really does have the potential to be a quality backup for the long term.
Yeah, we looked at his completions. He had 6 completions for 82 yards in the last 4 minutes, literally the last drive of the game against Dallas. Mike Glennon had 99 yards and 3 interceptions in the first 3.5 quarters. Now, a lot of people will say it was garbage time, and yes, that's true. They still had their entire starting defense out there. They were playing a lot of cover three, so they were really playing a lot of off ball coverage, leaving the middle of the field and really those shorter portions open for Jake Fromm to execute. But teams have been doing that all year. And basically, they just keep everything in front of the Giants. Giants have some of the most dropped footballs in the entire league this year. The Giants will beat themselves if you give them the opportunity to do so. If you literally play, cover three and just leave a deep safety back there, play off ball coverage, all you have to do is let the Giants beat themselves and you will win the game. Because that's ultimately the recipe to beating this team is like they'll lose on their own. They will drop passes, they'll throw interceptions, the pass rush. The teams are rushing 3 pass rushers, 4 pass rushers. They're still overwhelming us with ease. Like you don't have to do much to beat this Giants offense, and that's just the reality. I think Jake Fromm did some decent stuff in this game, and ranging from he moved in the pocket pretty well. I saw him maneuver in the pocket, evade a couple of tacklers. That looked good. He's not an athletic quarterback by any means. He's not going to run the ball, but he can maneuver in the pocket. He feels some pressure. I like that about him. He's a very calm presence. When you have a presence like that in the huddle, he's very calm. He's relaying information. He doesn't know the playbook fully yet, so that definitely has a big impact on what he can do on this team. But I do think that the calmness he does display to his teammates is very, very nice for him, is very nice for, just not getting ahead of themselves. A lot of times you see the Giants, they're too antsy, they're too riled up, and they make mistakes because of it. Whether it be Darius Slayton dropping a football or Saquon Barkley, tripping or slipping, whatever it might be. It could be a myriad of different things. But Jake Fromm, to me, showed a little bit more flow. And as I said, and a couple people are also starting to hit on this, I think the Jake Fromm connection with Kenny Golladay is going to be better than the Daniel Jones connection with Kenny Golladay. And the reason is Daniel Jones throws absolute laser beams. He throws straight line passes, and it doesn't allow Kenny Golladay to get his body into a position where he can take advantage and gain leverage over a cornerback. That is what he does. Kenny Golladay is not known for his separation. He's not known for his slick route running. He's not a crisp route runner. He is a big body receiver. You need to loft the ball up, allow him to put himself in a position to gain leverage and make a catch. The problem is Daniel Jones either overthrows him or throws laser beams right at his hip. So the problem is when that kind of throw comes to him, he has to either readjust and he has to he can't high point a football. He has to turn around and go low, and it's easy for a defensive back to reach around and punch that ball out. Or Daniel Jones, and I've watched him sky multiple balls this season to Kenny Golladay, over his head in the end zone, over his head on the boundary. He's tall, but he's not freaking Elastico Man from the Fantastic Four. He's not going to reach his arm out 20 feet and catch it. So what I like about Jake Fromm and what I saw from some throws he made, he had a nice 30-yard out route, which showed some of that arm strength right in a hole shot right over a defender. That was a really nice throw there. Even though it's garbage time, that was still a hell of a throw. You can't discount that. And the one deep ball was probably Kenny Galladay's deepest pass completion of the season. He threw this rainbow pass in man coverage, and Golladay turns around. He sees it's coming, but he sees the trajectory of it is actually coming in at a higher level. It's not coming in as a laser beam, so he has time, right? Think about it. If you give a guy like Kenny Golladay 1 second to adjust his body and gain leverage, he's probably not going to be able to do it in time. He's not a fast receiver. He needs time to see the ball coming in and to adjust his body accordingly. That ball had about 3 seconds of hang time, so it's up in the air. He's able to locate it. He's able to shield off of the defender and then use his body to create a cushion and then haul that pass in. The touch that Jake Fromm naturally has, because he doesn't have this strong arm, he's not going to whip it in there like Brett Favre would, but he has good enough arm strength to get it down the field 30, 40 yards, which is all we really need from him because the offensive line isn't going to hold up to begin with. So over the next 3 games, I'd love to see them execute a game plan where Kenny Golladay and Jake Fromm are consistently connected. They have to be, they need to get more from Kenny Golladay before the season ends. They at least need to get him on the touchdown board. If he was to finish this season without a touchdown, being paid $17 million a year, I don't know what I would do. They got to get this guy Kenny Golladay in the end zone. And I'd be willing to bet they're going to get him a touchdown this upcoming week against Philadelphia, because I think Jake Fromm and him have a much better connection than Daniel Jones or Mike Glennon will. But that's personally my take, Anthony. What are you looking for from him against the Eagles?
Yeah, I think I want to touch on the touch passes, right? Because I remember we did a film breakdown on Daniel Jones months ago when we were talking about how he doesn't have a whole lot of touch on his passes. And sometimes that does make things a little bit difficult on receivers. Now, if you ever watch any of the big film breakdown channels on YouTube, the Brett Colemans of the world, or if you actually do any research on what NFL scouts want to do when they're breaking down quarterback film, touch passes, having touch on your passes is pretty important to all of those scouts. It's very important. The quarterback has to be able to throw a ball that's catchable. That's one of the things that made Russell Wilson so successful in his career because his touch passes were like no other. He has an incredible amount of touch on his passes. They're perfect. They just softly cushion right into the wide receiver's hands all the time. That's really what he made his career so successful with. And there's many other quarterbacks that you can go on and point out such great touch passes from. But Daniel Jones is not one of those quarterbacks. His touch passes have not really been there. He's either throwing laser beams or he's throwing big lobs downfield. And most of the time, he's really just throwing laser beams. I like to point to that play early this season. I think it was in week 2 versus Washington when we lost on that field goal. That throw that he had to Darius Slayton dropped it, would have been a touchdown. Darius Slayton should have caught that. It's Darius Slayton's fault. However, Daniel Jones threw a freaking laser into the end zone there. If you put some touch on that ball, Darius Slayton has a lot more time to get under it and adjust, and it's an easy touchdown. So, yes, that play was Darius Slayton's fault. You have a better receiver there, it's a touchdown. But you have a better quarterback there, it's also a touchdown. A quarterback puts some more touch on that pass, a little more air underneath it, really just float it right into the receiver's hands. It's a touchdown. So it goes hand in hand, right? Because of course, the receiver has to make that play, but the quarterback also has to make that play. Neither one of them really made that play. Yeah, Daniel Jones stood in there, got hit as he threw, and the ball was accurate enough to be catchable. But just because it's accurate enough to be catchable doesn't mean it was the best throw. It should have been so accurate that there should have been no chance of it being dropped. And there really wasn't that level of accuracy on that throw. And that's something that we have seen time and time again with Daniel Jones. Just a lot of lasers and situations where you need a little more touch on those passes. Now, for Jake Fromm and his touch passes, this is an interesting thing that Alex is bringing up here. I think that's important to note because if you do go back, you watch the film for Jake Fromm back in college, which I did watch some Jake Fromm film before the 2020 NFL draft. I mean, he does throw some pretty good touch passes. And why? It's because he doesn't have that laser arm. He doesn't have that cannon, doesn't really have the ability to drive the ball downfield with a lot of zip. So he has to rely on being accurate, having good timing and good touch. Because if you don't have the ability to gunsling, you have to have a really good timing and really good touch. That's the main thing. Aaron Rodgers, you watch him. He doesn't need that great timing. He has that great timing, but sometimes he doesn't need it because he could throw the ball so freaking fast that it just pinpoints right into the receiver's hands as soon as they turn around, even if the throw is a little bit late. And that's how he can beat receivers. But for guys like Jake Fromm, they don't have that natural ability. That's not something you can teach. So Jake Fromm has to really time his throws perfectly and put some touch on them, get them over the arms of outreaching defenders like he did a couple times. We just did that film breakdown 2 days ago. There was a couple times where he put some touch on these balls on a couple of those out routes, and it just went right over the receiver's hand, just flew right over because he had really great touch on it. And so it went up and then it dropped down perfectly right into the receiver's hands. The touch is very important, and it's something that, it takes a while for quarterbacks to master at times. But if you come into the NFL and you already have that, a guy like Jake Fromm, that's why I think that he could be a pretty good backup quarterback because the timing and the touch, the accuracy on those touch passes is really important. But what am I expecting for him to do in the game against the Eagles? Well, Alex, I want to present this little scenario. I think this is pretty funny and exciting. Someone mentioned this to me on Twitter. Sorry, I don't remember who, if you're watching. But what if the Giants win on Sunday and then they lose to Washington in a few weeks? Well, they might just screw over Philadelphia's chances of making the playoffs like Philadelphia screwed us over last year. So I'm kind of rooting for that scenario now. I would like to win now and then lose to Washington. And hopefully, if Washington makes it over the Eagles, I'm happy because the Eagles were the ones that tried to screw us last year. They did screw us last year. And so going forward for this season, that's what I want to see. I hope Jake Fromm goes out there, puts together a great victory on Sunday over the Eagles. And then, of course, if we lose to Washington, so be it. As long as Philly doesn't sniff the playoffs this year, then I'm happy.
I'm always happy if Philadelphia misses the playoffs, but let's not forget that Evan Ingram also helped us screw us out of a playoff spot with that drop. Would
Absolutely
have taken
true.
into the house. So the Giants didn't deserve to make the playoffs last year. The NFC East was just historically bad. Like the Giants were a bad team. I think a lot of people get lost in the fact that they almost made the postseason with the fact that they only won like 6 or 7 games. Like it was embarrassing. So I'm really hoping that the Giants can turn this thing around. But, we have a lot to talk about in the coming days. And one of the things that I really do want to hit on, and by the way, like with Jake Fromm, I think the most we want to see is him just become a good backup, a serviceable backup for the future. That's really what we're aiming for here. The next 3 weeks, give him the time, let him learn the playbook, give him some reps, because honestly, it'll at least be more interesting than watching Mike Glennon, and that's a fact. But let's look at, this one scenario that we're going to be talking about pretty extensively over the next couple months. especially on Black Monday, which is going to be a nationally celebrated holiday in Giants football and Giants land, because that's the day that Dave Gettleman will be hopefully retiring. But I have to say, we've been talking about Ed Dodds a couple times. You mentioned his name in a couple episodes. And this is someone that Anthony is going to do an X-Files case on, and really dive into his interworkings and what he can offer this team in the future as a GM candidate. Um, I think Anthony might be allergic to the Giants because he's seasoned like crazy right now.
I,
But I
I
have
don't
to
know
say,
what's
Ed
going on,
Dodds,
man.
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's the hat, but ultimately, um, Ed Dodds, guys. The Colts had 7 Pro Bowlers this year. 7 Pro Bowlers. The Giants had a fat 0. Of course, we would have loved to see Xavier McKinney, Graham Gano make it, but they just didn't have the full season of just great play. I think Gano still looked great. McKinney looks great, but he started off the season kind of slow. He needed to have a dominant all around year. Colts had 7 Pro Bowlers. 7. Ed Dodds, one of their head player personnel evaluation guys. They need him to come here and bring in some guys with him and help freaking evolve this team, because we are stuck in the dark ages, guys. It's really sad to see, but ultimately, that's the kind of guy that if you're going to go with an outside hire, you sell the farm for a guy like that. You say to Ed Dodds, hey, man, we got 9 draft picks. You can do whatever you want. Next year, we have a bunch of money opening up. We can do whatever you got to do. You can make trades. We trust you. We trust you to help build this roster. Try to win with what we have now. Try to build off of the foundation that we have now. But if it doesn't work after next season, you have full autonomy to blow this thing up and rebuild the right way. I think that the Giants do have some foundational pieces that they don't have to blow up the entire team, but they're sure as hell going to have to blow up the offense, because the defense, I think, can be very good. With the addition of a couple players and the return of Blake Martinez, depending on if he stays. But Anthony, I think that we are looking at a future here that is entirely dependent on if the Giants go in-house or out of house with their GM search. So we're going to see what happens in the coming weeks. It's going to be quite interesting, and I imagine a lot of people are going to be very angry if they do go in-house. But I hope you guys enjoyed this episode talking about Jake Fromm, what he has to offer, and what we really want to see from him. Just really good backup play and just a serviceable guy we can call upon if need be. I think Anthony's in the same boat, and you probably are as well. Some people might say, we think Jake Fromm can be a starting level quarterback. Well, hell, if he can dominate and kick ass the last 3 weeks of the season, maybe he can be. I don't know. I can't see the future, but at the very least, I would love to see him be a good backup for this team moving forward. And of course, I think he has the talent to do so. And, better than Mike Glennon. That's all I got to say. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure to drop a like and subscription below on YouTube as always. And we'll catch you guys on the next Fireside Giants video.